In this video, we're going to take a look at this recent New York Times Siena College poll. They took a look at Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. And the headline is Harris leads Trump in 3 key states. We can see in all 3 states, she's up by the same 4-point margin, 50 to 46. So we're going to go through this poll real quick. And as always, this is just one poll. Take it somewhat with a grain of salt. We've seen a lot of different polls over this election cycle. And I've always said things can change. At this point, we pretty much got to wait until right before the election. And even then, the polling might end up being inaccurate. So the margin of error in these polls is just over 4 points. The sample size in the 3 states was between 600 and 700 voters. So let's see what it says. We've got, while the reshaped race is still in its volatile early weeks, Democrats are now in a notably stronger position in these 3 battleground states that have long been key to the party's victories or defeats. Still, the results show vulnerabilities for Ms. Harris. Voters prefer Mr. Trump when it comes to whom they trust to handle the economy and immigration, issues that remain central to the presidential race. Then it says her numbers are even higher than before Biden's debate performance. And then here it says her favorability ratings have increased 10 points among registered voters in Pennsylvania just in the last month. Voters also view Harris as more intelligent and more temperamentally fit to govern than Trump. We've got a quote here from a Michigan voter that typically votes Republican. He says he's considering backing Harris in November. While he disagrees with some Democratic policies, he said he cannot stand Trump's disrespectful and unacceptable attitude. I would wonder if he voted for Trump in the past, how his character is dramatically different than in those 2 elections. It does say he supported him in 16, but then he says the alternative is just not acceptable in his mind because character is everything. And you're going to get a range of voters like that. Some are going to be all about 1 or 2 specific policies. Some are going to be just purely about vibes or character. It says it's unclear how much of Harris's bounce in the polls stems from the heightened excitement surrounding her ascension to the top of the ticket or whether that momentum will last. That's probably the most important point. From my perspective, I think it's most reasonable to consider that prior to Biden's debate, Harris was actually less popular during many of the polls. So it does seem something in the direction of unsustainable or unrealistic for her to go from that level of popularity all the way up to something in the direction of Obama just in a week or 2. I know her profile was lower as vice president, but there was a lot of dissatisfaction there. I really can't imagine anybody's favorables turning around that dramatically just because they're at the top of the ticket. I can't understand Democrats being excited now that Biden is out of the way. That was pretty much a sinking ship. So I think it remains to be seen what's actually going to happen over the next 2 or 3 months. We've got the convention coming up. Harris is still fresh for a lot of voters. The Trump campaign is going to try to define her and her positions. It's possible it falls completely flat. Or once Harris gets out there, does more interviews, takes more questions, tries to connect with voters, then her popularity could fall back down to something in the direction of where it was just 2 or 3 months ago. Next, it says, in general, how satisfied are you with your choice of candidates in this fall's presidential election? In May, for all voters, it was 58 to 40 that are satisfied. Now it's 73 satisfied, 25 not satisfied. Democrats were at 60 in May. Now they're all the way up to 87. Independents were 45. They're up to 60. Republicans were at 74. They're at 79. So it looks like Democrats have an 8-point satisfaction gap. Then it says there's little doubt that replacing Biden on the ticket has turbocharged Democratic enthusiasm. There's no denying that's true, but again, the question is it going to last and to what extent? If she is this popular now, I would think she would have been relatively popular just a couple of months ago. I've also said for a long time that once Trump comes back into the spotlight, voters that are not super engaged with politics might be put off by Trump's antics. But we also have to consider the party in power has low favorability ratings. People think we're headed in the wrong direction. That makes for a difficult task for Harris regardless of her other qualities. Down here, this says the percentage of registered voters who said the traits described each candidate very well or somewhat well. Has a clear vision for the country. Trump leads that one 60 to 53. Has the temperament to be an effective president. Harris is up 54 to 45. Is honest. Harris with a big gap 52 to 41. Is intelligent. Harris 65, Trump 56. Will bring about the right kind of change. Harris is up 50 to 47. It says 42% of voters said Harris was too liberal. 37% said the same about Biden last October. Trump has tried to define her as being too far to the left. It says in recent days Harris has disavowed some of her previous stances on issues including border enforcement and fracking, as well as her support for single-payer health care. This is the kind of thing that I think could come back to haunt her. She ran in 2020 and had 0 success. She didn't even make it to her home state. There are a lot of clips where she indicates she has more progressive views. Now, you can say you don't think that anymore. That's fine. But I do think that might play into her biggest weakness, and that is appearing inauthentic. We saw that with Hillary Clinton. If you're changing your views too much and it looks like you're just pandering to every crowd that you speak to, that could be a big liability. There's also plenty of clips out there of Harris giving speeches where she gives awkward awkward responses. She's got the laughing. That's always been a concern of mine when it comes to, again, connecting with voters. Higher income and higher educated voters are, of course, going to be more of a fan of Harris, but when it comes to blue-collar voters in those Rust Belt states, that's the kind of thing I think in the end could come back to haunt her. Now, we all know Trump has massive amounts of baggage. He's got the conviction. He's got tons of clips we've seen endlessly over the years that make him look weak. The only thing about that is everybody already pretty much knows everything about Trump that there is. It's mostly a love him or hate him at this point. There's not much new information there. Harris is going to have new information coming out as she gets introduced to voters. She's also gotten very favorable media coverage for the most part. That kind of celebrity status is another thing that could end up wearing off as the weeks or the months go on. Then there's a little bit more here. The issues that Trump is better on are going to be, of course, the economy and immigration, while Harris is going to be more favored on abortion and democracy. Then it has some polling as to how it compares to other polls. So far, these polls look the most favorable to Harris compared to the others. Maybe they're outliers, maybe they're too friendly to Democrats, or maybe they're absolutely representative of where the electorate is at. Then we've got a little bit about the running mates here. It says J.D. Vance is viewed broadly unfavorably by independent voters. 1/3 say they were dissatisfied, 17% described themselves as angry about his selection. With Republican voters, 43% said they were excited about the VP selection, 38% said they were satisfied but not enthusiastic. Tim Walz, by comparison, received higher marks within his own party. Vance does seem to be the most similar to Trump, so that should be the most exciting for his base. And then it says the new polls also included crucial Senate races in the 3 swing states. Democrats hold a slight edge among likely voters in Michigan and larger leads in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. Previously, we saw Biden running well ahead of Senate Democrats. Sometimes it even got to double digits. We don't have the numbers here, but it does sound like those numbers have narrowed. So after that, down below, you can read more about the poll methodology, and you could also click here to view the crosstabs and the specific question wording. So it's always fun to dig into the data. You might find that they sampled the electorate or weighted the results improperly. We're not going to go through that all here. We're just trying to hit the highlights. But for the most part, this continues to be what we've seen. Harris seems to be vastly outperforming Biden. I think it's way too early to say if it's going to last. I do think Harris has significant vulnerabilities. She was unpopular not that long ago. But now that the polls show her in the lead, Democrats are going to be jubilant. Republicans are going to fall back to saying the polling is going to be underestimating Trump. And that is true. They did do so in the past 2 elections in most of the states. But regardless of who's on top, I've always been saying you've got to give it more time, especially after everything we've seen in this election. The polls are just a snapshot in time. So much has changed. Pollsters could be spot on, or they could be off by 1, 2, maybe even 4 or 5 points again in a couple of these states. But I'm going to leave it there for now, so let me know in the comments. What do you think about this Siena College poll? Do you like this pollster? Do you not like them? Do you think Harris is clearly leading in all these states? What do you make of Harris's popularity flipping in a short period of time? Is she actually that popular? Is it going to change? What about Trump? Let me know down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.